All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Potential Project. I'm your host, Sean Calhoun, and if you're here, it's because you're ready to reduce stress, burn stubborn fat, and get your body working with you instead of against you. On this podcast, we're all about simple, no BS strategies for fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle. This way, you can feel strong, confident, and in control. I'll give you the tools, mindset shifts, and habits to help you look and feel your best without spending hours in the gym or stressing over every single meal. Now, let's get into it. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. I hope you are having an amazing start to your week. And today, what we're going to talk about is cortisol. Now, this is going to be a shorter episode. I don't have too much to talk about today, but I just wanted to clear the air because cortisol seems to be the word of the year, right? It's pretty trendy recently. If you go on TikTok or Instagram, you're going to see a lot of posts revolving around cortisol. Now, I don't plan to be the one-off expert that knows things that people don't, but I just want to share my perspective on and knowledge on cortisol and how it applies to the people that I work with. Now, before we get into these things, what I'm going to talk about today doesn't apply to everyone, right? What I hope to do is bring some awareness to you and maybe understand how cortisol is affecting you, what it is, what it does, and maybe what stage of maybe cortisol dysregulation you might be in and how your body's reacting to it so that you can get to a better state and manage your energy better and manage your stress better. So I wrote down a little I write things in my notes, right? And that's what sparks these episodes, right? I deal with clients and Instagram and life, right? I'm researching this type of stuff every day. So when I have a good conversation, I'll jot down something in my notes and that's what sparks it. So this is what I was writing down. It's that lately everyone's talking about cortisol like it's the villain, right? It's the villain behind your belly fat, behind anxiety, and behind your sleep issues. But the problem is that cortisol is part of the problem, but a lot of these women that I talk to think that what they have is high cortisol, right? And actually a lot of them through their testing were finding out that they don't have high cortisol, but they have low cortisol. And you might say, well, Sean, that sounds counterintuitive and sounds like opposite from what we talk about and what we know about cortisol. And it's true, it does sound off because if you think of cortisol as the stress hormone and you're going through a lot of stress, well, then you would think that your cortisol is high all the time, right? So just a quick reminder, cortisol is a hormone and it is the stress hormone. It goes in response to stress. So if you get punched, right, cortisol heightens because it's also anti-inflammatory. So it goes to respond to physical trauma, to heal pain, and to reduce inflammation and bring blood flow to the area. It is a response that heightens your rate, right? If you have to run for your life or something scary happens, right? It spikes your heart rate, it spikes your adrenaline, right? A lot of things happen from cortisol, and it is very important, right? Our body, we need cortisol. And if you are finding yourself in like aches and chronic pain, it might be because you're in low cortisol as well, because it is an anti-inflammatory hormone and chemical, right? So it matters because if we don't have this, then our body is not as resilient, right? Like it's not feeling good when the stressors of life happen to us. So actually, if you are in a high stress situation and your life's very stressful, or you're, in martial arts and you're beating your body up and things like that, and you feel okay, it might be because your body does produce a good amount of cortisol to go and balance all that stuff out. So just a reminder, it is the stress hormone. It is very important and it has a lot of benefits. It's not the villain behind everything that is your health, right? So I want to give cortisol the credit where credit is due. But what most people think is that stress equals high cortisol. And again, I said this in the beginning, but we're going to break down why it's not always true. Because the truth is after years of chronic stress, your body can actually shift into a low cortisol situation, which, usually stems from adrenal fatigue and burnout through the adrenal glands. So let's break this down, right? So if your body is eating foods that have toxins in them, that's stress on your body. If you're drinking water that has chemicals in them, that's stress on your body because your body has to go and detox that out, right? If you are working out intensely or punishing your body through physical bouts of effort, right? Consistently, that's stress on the body. If you're not getting proper good sleep, that's stress on the body. If your work is, heavily taxing on your mental load, that's stress on the body. So if that's been going on for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you name it, everyone's at a different age. If that's been going on at a chronic level for a long time, well, then your cortisol levels are going to fluctuate. So in order for your cortisol to secrete into your body, what happens is there is what's called the HPA axis, your hypothalamus, your pituitary gland, and your adrenal glands. So your hypothalamus is up in your brain. That sends a signal for your pituitary gland to then secrete cortisol through your adrenal glands. Now, this is a pathway, it's called, in your body that allows hormones to properly regulate. And then what happens is, over time, if your body is chronically stressed, this gets burnt out, essentially, right? We're not going to use absolute words here, but for simple terms, this pathway gets abused, right? And it's not able to properly secrete the cortisol the way it needs to. So it gets tired, it's not working properly. There are mixed signals being sent back up to your hypothalamus, so it's not as regulated as it needs to be. So this is what we call adrenal fatigue, or I like to call it HPA axis dysfunction and cortisol dysregulation. As an FDN, those are the terminologies that we use. HPA axis dysfunction and cortisol dysregulation, because that's really what it is. There's a dysfunction in your HPA axis, line of communication, and there's cortisol dysregulation. It's going out improperly throughout the day. So if you're saying, this might be me, how do I know? Here are some common signs of low cortisol. There is fatigue even after a night of sleep. There is crashing in the afternoon, trouble handling even minor stress. So little things like driving in traffic and things that pop up at work, you're not able to manage that properly. Feeling wired but tired, like your brain's working, but your body is just exhausted. And then craving salt. Craving salt is a big sign of, low cortisol and adrenal fatigue. So what does this all mean? Like, let's break down what's actually going on in your body. So the cycle of it is that we have chronic stress over long periods of time. That leads to high cortisol for an extended period of time until eventual burnout happens throughout your HPA axis and in your body, and that leads to low cortisol. So this process is going to impact a lot of things, your metabolism, belly fat accumulation, your thyroid, your sex hormones, and your energy, right? So how it impacts your metabolism is through the thyroid, right? Your thyroid works with your HPA axis, and all of your systems are connected. So when we have cortisol dysregulation, then your thyroid isn't going to operate properly and do what it needs to do to secrete thyroid hormones. And your thyroid is the master regulator of your metabolism. So that happens, right? When we have low cortisol, it's going to affect our sex hormones, like our progesterone and estradiol, and those are going to come down. I see a lot of test results where, these women's labs and their levels for estradiol and progesterone are just super low. And now when I say this, I want you guys to remember, I mainly work with women in the peri and postmenopausal range. So these are women that are typically, 35, 40 and up, right? So this isn't for everyone. I want you to know that you might be a man in your 30s. Everyone's different. Everyone has different, scenarios with their body. Everyone's an individual. So I just want you to know that when I'm talking about some of these things, it's not a broad statement for everybody in the world. I'm just showing you what I have experienced with my clients, and if it can relate to you, you might be able to benefit from some of the things that we're going to talk about, right? So, and it affects your energy because cortisol gives you energy. It produces the adrenaline in your body, and it does produce energy. So if that's not regulated properly, we're going to have some trouble with our energy throughout the day. Usually if you're not tired in the morning, you feel that experience where in the afternoon you just tank, right? So I want to break down the process of getting from feeling good to where you might be at with your low cortisol, right? And we have a chart, and I don't have a visual representation, but I'm going to talk through it. And it is that progression of HPA axis dysfunction, right? So the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal glands start to have some dysfunction as this chronic stress happens over time. So hear me out. At first, when we're born and when we're nice and healthy, and you can be healthy at any age, but I'm just saying, usually when we're younger and more vibrant and resilient, you're at a space of homeostasis. So this is where your stress levels are balanced, right? They can respond to a stress response, but then calm back down. Your cortisol rhythm is in line with the patterns of the day. So in a perfect world, you wake up and about 30 minutes from there is the height of your cortisol in the day. And then it slowly decreases throughout the day, allowing us to fall into deep sleep. As it goes down, melatonin picks up at nighttime, which is allowing us to sleep. And then we repeat that cycle. So this is what's happening during homeostasis of the body, right? Stress is manageable. Cortisol is on that good pattern where it's high in the morning, lower at nighttime, and all is well. Our body, feels well. You have good energy. You feel resilient, right? And then what happens as stress continues to add on, we get into what's called the acute phase, right? This is where you have heightened levels of stress, but your body is still resilient to it. This is what I was talking about. Maybe you're starting off in your career, you're working hard, long hours. There's just a lot of things. Maybe you're staying out late on the weekends, you're partying, but you still feel fine, right? Because your body is resilient to that, even though you're at a high level of stress, right? The alcohol, maybe some recreational drugs, you're staying up late, you're working hard. I'm not saying that's you, but this happens sometimes, right? That's the acute phase where your cortisol is high, but it's manageable. So it's keeping your body at bay and your resilience is very high. Well, if you do that for years on end, or you continue to eat those processed foods, maybe you're smoking cigarettes, you're doing things to cause stress to your body, well, that's what the dysfunction starts to happen. Right now, we come down that bell curve and we start to exhaust our adrenal glands, right? Our adrenal glands can no longer produce the cortisol the way that we need it to. So now we're in what's called the compensatory phase. So as the word states, right, our body is compensating for the lack of resiliency, right? Now our body is not as resilient, but we're still receiving high levels of chronic stress. So what do, right? We start to feel bad. We start to get aches. We start to get pains. We start to get symptoms that are showing up in our body. And this is why I always talk about the things that are going on right now aren't a quick fix, because they happen from years and years and years of dysfunction in your body, and now they're manifesting as a symptom. So you might feel fatigue, you might have low libido, you might have aches and pains in your joints. Well, that's not going to be fixed with some pill, because it took years and years to get to that point. So it's going on inside. There's a lot of imbalance happening. But you're in that compensatory phase where you're starting to feel things. And then where I see some people is in the last phase of this adrenal dysfunction and this HPA axis dysfunction is the exhaustion phase. And this is where we see those cortisol levels just completely flatlined, right? Like I said before, cortisol is supposed to be at its highest in the morning and then slowly come down the curve throughout the day. Well, what I've seen is below the curve on every part of the day. The morning, noon, afternoon, and night is all very low, flatline cortisol numbers, because these people are in the exhaustive phase. This is where they've been under chronic stress for so long that their adrenal glands have totally, misfired. They're not producing cortisol properly. They are burnt out, so to speak, so that we have issues with producing our hormones. Now, you're also going to see things like low testosterone, low estrogen, low progesterone, right? Low different numbers. Maybe your melatonin is high in the middle of the day, which is not good because you want it to be high at night. So there are different signs and symptoms that we're going to start to see as this occurs, right? So that means your problems in your metabolism start happening. This is where you start to see belly fat that just won't budge, right? You're working out, you're eating healthy, but the belly fat won't move. You have low libido and low energy. Those are things that you're going to start to see at this compensatory and exhaustion phase. And you're wondering why. You're saying, you know what? I can't lose this belly fat. I don't understand. I'm married, but I have no interest in intimacy with them because it's not there, right? Your energy is so terrible that you wake up tired. You might be living off caffeine. You're chugging 3 coffees a day just to get by. And then by the time 3 p.m. happens, you're crashing out. And then what else happens is you can't get good sleep. You're probably waking up between 1 to 3 in the morning, or you're wired but tired. All these things are starting to happen, and you're like, what is going on? Well, if this is speaking to you, this is what's happening. You most likely have adrenal exhaustion and or low cortisol, right? Your body is totally depleted. Your body doesn't feel safe, and it's in that fight or flight mode at all times. So what do we need to do, right? We need to make our body feel safe. We need to allow our body to heal. We need to regulate what's going on internally so that your body can do what it knows what it needs to do. Hey, hope you're loving the episode so far. Thanks for spending some time with me. I got a quick favor to ask. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast because that's how I know you're getting value from the show. And this way, you never miss an episode. All right, now back to the show. Right? You don't have to tell your cells what their jobs are. We have to allow them to happen. So what we do is we stress ourselves out, right? We cause this external stuff through the food we're eating, the water. I've given the examples multiple times. The food we're eating, the water we're drinking, the people we're surrounding ourselves with, our careers, the lack of sleep is all contributing to not allowing our body to do what it knows what it needs to do. So what we do, what I like to help coach is through lifestyle practices, through testing, we figure out where we're at and we allow ourselves to balance that back out, right? And that's why all 5 elements of our, we call it a DRESS protocol, have to happen in order for this to work. So DRESS is an acronym. It stands for diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation, right? When we do all of those at the same time, we're not just healing symptoms. We're not just rubbing a cream on our skin for a rash. We're not just taking a Red Bull, drinking a Red Bull to give us energy. No, we're healing ourselves from the inside out and doing these things over time so that your body knows what to do. Your cortisol regulation becomes more balanced. Your diurnal rhythm, you're matched up with the sun. You have your cortisol rhythm throughout the day. That gets balanced. Your adrenal glands get rehydrated through minerals and they're activated to work properly. And that's the big thing that happens, right? Your adrenal glands are exhausted and you're dehydrated. So your body needs these minerals, these trace minerals, to go in and spark the energy to work in your adrenal glands again. So things like sodium, magnesium, potassium, right? This is what we see are severely low in a lot of these people that we test that they need to then reboot their system again. So what are we going to do about this? We need to have some action steps and some things that we can take into play to reset ourselves. So let's just take a pause here and reflect. Is any of this resonating with you? Are you someone who wakes up tired, is drinking a ton of caffeine or coffee, is crashing in the afternoon, work, once you get done work, you need a nap. You are wired but tired at nighttime. You have low libido, right? Like if these things are ringing a bell and they sound like you, well, then listen up because this could, impact you for the better on some of these steps. So we're going to talk about 5 different steps to get us from complete adrenal exhaustion and completely low cortisol and just things are out of whack and start to bring them back to practice. None of this stuff that I'm going to talk about on here is a quick fix, right? There's no one magic pill that, oh my gosh, I take this, my cortisol is fine and I feel amazing and I'm resilient again. It doesn't work that way. It takes conscious effort. It takes you recording things and seeing how you're feeling and how you're reacting to the stimulus of life and making adjustments as you go. So step number 1 is to stop pushing harder, right? We were taught from our entire lives that we need to eat less and work out more, as if exercise is the magic pill for the food that we're eating. It's like if we could just out-exercise our diet, we can finally be fit, right? We can finally burn this fat. Well, that belly fat that's been accumulating for years and years that won't budge is not going to go away by you exercising more. So we need to cut it out with the high intensity stuff 6 times a week and really boil it down. Like if you love exercise, I'm not telling you to completely stop, but some of you need to. Some of you need to give yourself a time period, let's call it 4 to 6 weeks or maybe even longer of not exercising, of just going for walks, right? I'm not saying don't move your body, but if we're doing spin class and high intensity boot camps and waking up really early just to go, burn out our adrenal glands even more, that's not helping you at all. So we need to stop pushing harder. We need to focus on getting your 10,000 steps in a day, preferably outside with the sunshine, right? Out in the elements. We need to prioritize mobility and stretching and maybe some yoga flow sessions, right? Rather than the heavy, hard-hitting, high-intensity workouts all the time. So that's step number 1, is you need to regulate your nervous system and not make it worse through exercise. Because like I said, your body needs to heal. It needs to feel safe enough to let go of the stored fat that it has. So if you're exercising and doing high intensity on an empty stomach early in the morning, your body doesn't feel safe at that point. It's not ready to burn fat. It's not ready to bear children or do any of those things, digest food. It doesn't want to do those things because it doesn't feel safe. So first step, get our body to feel safe by stop pushing harder with our workouts. Step number 2 is to prioritize sleep like it's medicine, because it is, right? When you are in deep REM sleep and you're getting proper quality sleep, your body does magical things to detox, to heal itself, and to rejuvenate, right? So if we're not sleeping properly, we need to start to regulate it. And you might say, well, hey, Sean, you told me before because of my low cortisol, it's causing me to not sleep well. And yes, that may be correct. But the step that we're going to take is not to get good sleep. It's to set up our sleep hygiene so that as we regulate these things, your body can fall into a deep sleep. So that is things like having a wind down routine or having a strict bedtime and wake up time. So maybe you're starting to go to bed prior to 10 p.m., right? Maybe you're starting to wake up at around 6. You want to get those 7 to 9 hours of time in bed first and then allow yourself to get deep sleep. So let's say you're staying up until 11 or 12. Well, something you could do to prioritize that is to 30 minutes earlier, work your way to get into bed by 10 p.m. And then you do that on a consistent basis. And then maybe you're incorporating a hot shower or bath. And maybe you're giving yourself an hour before bed with no screens and you start to read a book or do some breathing techniques. And I can go on and on. There's a lot of things that you can do for your sleep hygiene. But the point is you need to start prioritizing the habits around your sleep so that the time you're in bed starts to get a little bit better. We start to sleep more soundly. We start to get onto a normal routine of, hey, this is when I go to bed, this is when I wake up. And that's step 2. Step number 3 is to eat enough. Your body, again, if it's in this state, does not feel safe. And what does your body need to flourish and to live and to produce more cells is food. We literally are what we eat. So if we're constantly rejuvenating and rebuilding cells, it has to come from nourishing food. And if you are calorie restricting and never eating fat and doing low carb and just eating under, 1,000 calories or just completely restricting your calories, you are harming your ability to burn fat. It sounds counterintuitive that I'm telling you to eat more food to burn fat, but you need to, right? Especially if it's nourishing protein and animal proteins and healthy fats. Your body needs these nutrients to go and burn fat and feel safe and to regulate its systems again. And I know in today's society, we talk a lot about macros and they're helpful, but think about the micronutrients in your food, right? All of the vitamins and minerals that your body needs to actually operate, right? It's not about a calculation of, are my macros correct to burn fat? It's like your body needs nutrients to then go and operate all of the systems. So if we're just focusing on macros, we're missing out on half, if not more, of the battle. So stop, cutting your calories so short just because you think that number needs to be in a deficit to lose weight. No, your body needs to heal. So make sure you're eating enough, especially protein and having those healthy fats and carbs in the mix. Step number 4 is to incorporate some type of nervous system regulation, right? Your nervous system is heightened. And I don't know if you've ever sat and done some deep breathing and just laid there and calmed down. You can feel the nerves just melt out of your body. Like right now, I'm pretty amped up talking to the camera, and I'm jazzed up about this experience. So my nervous system is heightened. After I'm done this, if I were to go lay on the floor or even sit in this chair and do some deep breathing, I could physically feel the stress leave my body. It's crazy, and I know you've experienced this. So what we need to do is do a couple things to regulate your nervous system. So one thing you could do is breath work, right? You could do box breathing where you inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4. Do that for a couple rounds. You could also do breathing where your exhale is twice as long as your inhale. So let's say you inhaled for 4 seconds through your nose and then exhaled for 8 seconds. By doing that extended exhale, that calms your nervous system down. So you can do that anytime during the day. It takes 1 to 2 minutes, right? At your desk, before bed, when you wake up in the morning, you can do breathing techniques. Another thing you can do is going for a walk, right? Getting outside, moving your body fluidly, right? Calmly. You don't have to be in a rush or jogging. Just going for a walk. Get out, get some fresh air, get some sunshine. That's going to help, boost your mood. It's going to help calm your nervous system down. And another thing is nature, right? I know not all of us live near a forest or a beach or what have you, but if you can get in nature, it does wonders for your nervous system, for your mood. It brings up your hormones, that your serotonin, your dopamine. It brings all that up. So things like grounding, right? Putting your feet in the grass, in the sand, walking in the forest, like just being one with nature is one of the best medicines that you can do for your nervous system. And then step number 5 is to test, not guess, right? I am a huge proponent of this because I always talk about how individual we are, right? You can take some of these things and they might help you, right? The steps that we went through would probably benefit you. But that is without saying that if you don't know exactly where you're at, you might be doing something that is not helping you, and that's frustrating, right? That's not what we want. We want to get off this cycle of trial and error and saying, ooh, I heard this online, let me go try that, and then you not knowing if it's working for you. So I always say to test, not guess, because of that reason. Now, what I do is functional lab work that tests all of your hormone levels, your gut microbiome, your mucosal barrier, your immune system. Like, I test for all things like that. But even if you are not ready yet to do something like that and work with a functional practitioner like myself, you can go to your doctor. You can get your basic metabolic panel, things that are going to check your A1C levels, your blood sugar levels, your cholesterol, like different levels, your thyroid health, so that you know where you stand. A lot of those tests won't test the specific, like where your cortisol is throughout the day. So that's why you might want to look into some more functional testing. But everyone's at a different space in their journey. So I just want to remind you that, cortisol is not the enemy, right? It is necessary for our body, but we have to understand where our body is at within these phases, right? Like, yes, we need cortisol, but is my body depleted of it? Are my adrenal glands totally fatigued? Do I need to reboot certain systems? And how do I heal them? So that's what I wanted you to do through those 5 steps, is to understand that you are in control. It's not a pill that's going to fix it. It's number 1, testing it. It's acknowledging it, and then revealing to yourself how it feels when you make these changes. You see, I believe that you're the best practitioner in the world, and the sooner that we acknowledge this and start to make notes of what's going on, the better we're going to get. So, for example, if you went for a walk outside and then reflected on that, maybe in your phone, in your head, in a journal, and you say, you know what, man, that felt really good to go for that walk. Or, hey, I'm going to bed at 9 p.m. and waking up at 6 every day. Like, you're tracking that. And you're noticing, man, you know what? I don't feel like I need a nap anymore in the afternoon. You need to start reflecting, because sometimes we're stressed out and we don't even know because we don't reflect. So on the opposite, if we're making these improvements in our schedule, in our routines, in our habits, in our mindset, we can reflect on, wow, that's having a positive impact on me. I didn't realize how much I enjoy getting morning sunlight, or how much I love, reading a book before bed rather than scrolling on Instagram, right? Like, you're starting to reflect on these things, and that's how we make progress, because you make an adjustment, you reflect on what it did, and then you make a step from there so that you can either adjust it or improve it as you go. And that is, what I have for you today, right? It was not too long, but I hope that you took something from this and you can acknowledge where it applies in your life. And if further questions get brought up, please reach out to me, either on Instagram, if you have my phone number, however you can get in contact with me. Mostly it's social media. If you don't know me personally, reach out on there. I'll respond to all my DMs. I'd love to further the conversation if you have questions. And if you got value from this, remember, share it with a friend, text it to them, share it on your social media, so that more people can be aware that they're not crazy and the way that they're feeling is not normal, right? We can fix these things. So guys, I hope you have an amazing rest of the week, and I will see you next time. Hey, thanks for spending some time with me on today's episode. I hope you got a ton of value from it. If we're not connected on Instagram yet, let's change that. Hit me up at @SeanCalhoun_. That's SEAN Calhoun_. Shoot me a DM. Let me know what you think of the show, or if you got any questions about how to level up your health. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next episode.